Before my reality shifted, something happened that most people completely misunderstand, and it's called the dark night of the soul. And people sometimes talk about it like it's poetic or mystical, but if you've actually lived through one, you know there's nothing poetic about that shit at all. Now, I've had several dark nights of the soul throughout my life and over the years, and most of them were always tied to something really, really specific, like dating or career, maybe money or family. Each one of those times, something that I would rely on to help me make those decisions to navigate through them just stopped working, and I didn't know how to move forward without it. So that's what I want to break down for you, because those dark nights, they weren't just uncomfortable, and they were extremely uncomfortable. They were also, the best word I can use to describe them was confusing, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. But there was still a sense that if I just figured out the right move, things would actually start to make a lot more sense again. Now, the last dark night of the soul that I had was extremely different. The last one didn't feel very emotional. It didn't feel dramatic. It just felt like I ran out of answers completely. I wasn't sad. I wasn't depressed. I wasn't panicked. The other dark nights of the soul I had, there was those levels. But this one, it wasn't. I just genuinely did not know what my next step was anymore at all. I was so confused about my life and what I was doing and at the moment and in my past and the future. Just everything crashed down around me and fell apart in a sense of like I did not know how to get out of it. So I just sat there waiting. Nothing motivated me the way that it used to. The strategies that I always relied on and coping skills that I've taught myself over the years just stopped working. You know what it really felt like? It felt like despair. That's a perfect word for it. It just felt like despair, but not in a depressed way, like just sitting there not knowing what to do. My sense of identity, of who I thought I was and how I thought I moved through life, just felt unstable. It actually felt non existent. Where when I had the smaller ones where they're focused on specific things, there was still kind of always that light at the end of the tunnel. The big one that I had, the last one that I had, again, completely felt unstable. And that's what a real dark night of the soul actually is. It's not darkness, it's exposure. It's the moment where the version of you that used to know what to do suddenly doesn't know. The version of you that knew what you wanted completely disappeared. Goals, motivations, desires, wants, all of it completely disappeared. I felt like I was left with nothing. There was just kind of like a void, even though I was in reality and still looking at things. The identity I felt just felt like it dissolved. And it wasn't a choice. It was just all of these things were all happening at the same time. Any role that I had in my life as an employer, as an employee, as somebody that was dating, as a dad, all of those roles, all of those beliefs, all of the stories that I used to have about myself all went away. They didn't, what I saw was I wasn't actually that identity. That was completely false. I was living a false life through these identities that I thought I had. I got to a point where there was just nowhere left to hide. There was no familiar structure. There was nothing I could lean on to make myself feel better. There was nothing to fall back on. Everything crashed. My identity, again, best way to describe it, disappeared. And that's why I felt like I didn't know what step to take. And that's where that despair feeling came around. Now, what made that last one really, really different was the underneath confusion. Underneath the confusion was a certain level of clarity. And it wasn't comforting clarity. It wasn't like, oh, I figured something out. It was very sharp and it was very clear. And here's what it was. For the first time in my life, I saw that my patterns, without flinching, all of them, every single choice that I made, exactly why I made it, all of it was visible all at the same time. Every time I abandoned myself, every loop that I repeated, every block that I had, every excuse that I created, every way that I blamed circumstances around me and people and things and literally everything was something else's fault, not my own. Even timing, I blamed that too. Instead of taking any responsibility, that's how I live my life. And a lot of people live their life through that way too, because you have goals, you don't achieve the goals, you feel like it can't be me, it has to be something else. Once you see that clearly, that you are the only cause for everything in your life, good, bad, indifferent, Once you have that realization, there's no going back. Believe me, there's no going back because nothing was holding me back. Nothing blocked me. There was no circumstances that created the parts of my life that I did not want. The parts of my life that I didn't care for and didn't want to live. That wasn't the life that I wanted. It wasn't people that was doing it. It wasn't the universe doing it. It wasn't anything outside of me at all. What that last dark night of the soul showed me was it was all me. It was an old version of me running on fear, running on survival, running on avoiding life, avoiding why I made the decisions that I made. Now, that is, in my opinion, the real purpose of a dark night of the soul. It's not punishment. It's not showing you that you're a failure. It isn't something that's going wrong. It's dismantling. Dismantling of the fake identity that you've created because of everything outside of you and the influences that come into your life. Things fall apart because the structure you've been living inside cannot support the person that you are becoming anymore. And when that truth lands, that's when the shift is halfway done at that point. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody that's really spiritual, that's on a spiritual healing path, I get you, I'm with you, I've been on it, and I'm always going to be on it. But you always have this state that you feel like you should be at, right? Or this thing that you just know that you are becoming. And you think about it and it's comforting in a way, right? But that has to, before you get to that point, everything else that you were living, that fake identity, it does not fit. That life has to fall apart. When you get that realization, that's when you stop trying to fix yourself because you realize there's nothing to fix. Because you realize it was just decisions that you were making and the way that you showed up for yourself. So you stop forcing transformation or alchemizing your life. You stop treating growth like a project, like it's a task, like it's linear from point A to point B. Most people think life is a straight line. It's not. That shit's chaotic. So what you got to learn to do is drop the grip, and something inside of you is going to align. Now, this is the part that people do not talk about, and I'm telling you from my experience, because this is where people get stuck. Not because they're doing anything wrong. Again, you can't look at things as right and wrong at this level, because again, they're all choices that you make to teach yourself a lesson. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but that's the truth. And it's because there's an internal pattern that's still running the same decisions and reactions as that old life starts to collapse. And it's trying to cling on. And that's what happens a lot of times in that final, at least for me, dark night of that soul. Now, I do want to take a quick pause here and talk about something I'm now offering to the public, which are called my internal clarity sessions. What we do is we look at what are driving the patterns in your life that are reinforcing the identity that you're actually trying to break. But we don't do that at the surface level. We are digging in to find out what at your decision level making process are actually keeping you at the identity that you don't want to be at. We're not doing anything surface level here. We are straight up looking for the blocks that are keeping you stuck so we can collapse them and you can grow. In the description, you'll find the link if you want to learn more about that. All right, let's get back to this. So when that alignment happens, the ego doesn't die. And I mentioned this specifically because a lot of people talk about Dark Night of the Soul and an ego death. That was not my experience at all. Quite frankly, why you want to kill off a part of you doesn't make sense to me. What did make sense to me is my ego stopped fighting me, and it actually started working with me. After that, that's when things really started to change. But not because the world changed, but because the one, me, interpreting the world changed. I started looking at everything different because my energy shifted and I felt it. I actually felt like a different person. So when I talk about quantum shifting or reality shifting, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It wasn't my world that changed. It was me and the way I interacted with it. My decisions, they got cleaner. My boundaries became way more natural and they just kind of flowed with life. The standards that I had for everything around me, including myself, rose without effort. And a quantum shift or a reality shift, whatever you want to call it, isn't fireworks. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. It's final. It's honest. It's you accepting the identity of you, of who you actually are without the outside influences of life. So if you are on any type of a spiritual or healing journey and everything feels unclear right now, and it feels like nothing is working the way that it used to, or you don't really know the direction, I promise you, that's not the end. It's not where you're going to be stuck. It's you still going through and dismantling that old life before you turn into and you rebuild into the life that you want. But that rebuild is already happening quietly in the background. That's why the shift happens so easily. So, as far as the shift is concerned, don't chase it. Don't try to create it. You can't. It's going to happen naturally if you stay on your path and you know what it is you're trying to do with your thoughts, which is shifting into your true self. Because what comes after a true dark night of the soul is not confusion. It's simple. It's truth. And I promise you, if you stick with it, it is the most freeing thing you can imagine. So stick with it.